There are hands in this world that heal, and hands in this world that destroy, and sometimes this is the horror of it. They are the same hands. I have set down many of Hercule Poirot's cases over the years, some with admiration, some with bewilderment, and a few with a dread I could not quite account for at the time. But the affair of Dorian Mace, the Harley Street surgeon, the society darling, the man whose fingers were said to be worth £1,000 apiece. This is the one I return to most often in dreams, not because the crime was the most ingenious Poirot had encountered, though it was certainly that, but because the murderer was, in every visible particular, a good man, and because the victim, in every hidden particular, was not. It happened in the winter of 1936, when London shivered under skies the colour of old pewter and the lights along Regent Street burned like promises nobody intended to keep. Poirot heard about it before I did. I had been away 3 weeks in the Cotswolds, visiting an aunt who collected porcelain cats and opinions in equal abundance, and returned to London on a Tuesday evening to find my friend in an unusual state. He was standing at the window of his flat in Whitehaven Mansions, his back to the room, his hands clasped behind him. He did not turn when I entered. This was wrong. Poirot always turned. The man registered the arrival of a draft, let alone a friend. "Poirot, is everything—" "Sit down, Hastings." I sat. The flat was in its customary state of obsessive order. Every cushion plumped, every surface gleaming, the symmetry of the mantelpiece ornaments so precise it would have satisfied a naval architect. But the air had a weight to it, the atmospheric pressure of a man thinking hard. "A woman has died," he said, still facing the window. "I'm sorry to hear it." "Who?" "Lady Catherine Frome. You know the name, perhaps?" I did, vaguely. Lady Catherine was one of those figures who populated the society columns. The wife of Sir Edward Frome, the shipping magnate. Charitable works, hospital boards, the sort of woman photographed in furs at Ascot. I had never met her. "She died on the operating table," Poirot continued, 3 days ago, at the Welbeck Clinic on Harley Street. The surgeon was Dorian Mace. Now that name I knew. Everyone knew Dorian Mace. He was the most celebrated surgeon in London, possibly in Europe. His hands had opened and closed the bodies of cabinet ministers, ambassadors, and at least one minor royal. He was 52 years old, handsome in a greying, authoritative fashion, and possessed of a reputation so immaculate that even the medical establishment, which distrusts excellence on principle, could find nothing to criticize. What happened? The operation was routine. Removal of the gallbladder, a procedure Mace has performed, by his own account, more than 400 times without incident. Lady Catherine entered the theatre at 9 in the morning. By 10:30, she was dead. Complications. An allergic reaction, perhaps. The official cause of death is cardiac arrest under anesthesia. Dr. Mace has issued a statement expressing profound grief. Sir Edward Frome has issued a statement expressing confidence in the surgeon's competence. Scotland Yard has been informed, as is customary in cases of death during surgery, but has taken no action. He turned at last. His face, ordinarily so composed, carried an expression I had seen before. The look of a man who has heard a wrong note in what everyone else considers a perfect symphony. And yet you are not satisfied. I'm not satisfied, Hastings, because this morning I received a visitor. He gestured to the chair across from me. She sat where you sit now. She was calm, well-dressed, perfectly composed. She told me her name was Nurse Irene Sadler, and that for the past 2 years she has been the senior theatre nurse at the Welbeck Clinic. She assisted at every one of Dorian Mace's operations. And she told me that Lady Catherine Frome did not die of cardiac arrest. She was murdered on the operating table by the man holding the knife. The words hung between us like a held breath. Murdered by her own surgeon. Poirot, that's monstrous. Yes, Also, according to Nurse Sadler, true. I opened my mouth, closed it, and opened it again. What evidence does she have? She has her eyes, Hastings. Her training, her 2 years of standing 3 feet from Dorian Mace's hands while he worked. Poirot moved to his chair and sat with the precision of a cat settling onto a favorite surface. She told me that during the procedure, at a critical moment, Mace made an incision that was, her word, deliberate. Not a slip, not an error. A controlled cut to the hepatic artery, followed by a delay in responding to the hemorrhage. She said the delay was no more than 90 seconds. But 90 seconds when a major artery has been severed is the difference between life and death. Could she be mistaken? Under the pressure of an operating theater. I asked her the same question. She said, "Monsieur Poirot, I have watched this man operate for 2 years. I know his rhythm, his gestures, his habits. I know the difference between a mistake and a decision. What I saw was a decision." Then why not go to the police? Poirot's mustache twitched, not with amusement, but with something closer to sorrow. Because, Hastings, who will believe a nurse against the most respected surgeon in England? She has no physical evidence. The body has already been released for burial, and the anesthetist, the junior surgeon, and the other theater staff have all confirmed that the procedure was standard and the death a tragic but foreseeable complication. All of them. All of them. Nurse Sadler is alone in her accusation. Then perhaps she is wrong. Perhaps. Poirot steepled his fingers, and yet she described something else. Something that, to Hercule Poirot, is more persuasive than any physical evidence. What? His face. She said that when Lady Catherine's heart stopped, when the monitors sounded the alarm and the theatre erupted into emergency protocols, Dorian Mace stood very still. His hands did not move. His face did not change. And for one moment, one single moment before he began the resuscitation attempt that he knew would fail, she saw something in his eyes. What did she see? Relief. We went the following morning. Harley Street in winter has a particular quality. The white stucco facades, the brass nameplates catching what little light the December sky affords, the black motor cars parked in formation like a fleet at anchor. It is a street that smells of money and discretion, where suffering is transacted behind polished doors and diagnoses are delivered in rooms with better furniture than most people's homes. The Welbeck Clinic occupied a handsome building at the Cavendish Square end, its entrance flanked by columns that suggested a temple, which, in a sense, it was. A temple to the body, presided over by its high priest, Dorian Mace. Poirot had arranged the visit through channels I did not inquire about. He presented himself not as a detective, but as a prospective patient. A Belgian gentleman of mature years, concerned about a digestive complaint, seeking the finest surgical opinion money could buy. It was a performance of exquisite plausibility. By the time we were admitted to the consultation room, even I half believed he was ill. Dorian Mace entered with the quiet authority of a man who owns every room he walks into. He was tall, lean, silver-haired, with the sort of tan that comes from Mediterranean holidays rather than English gardens. His hands, those famous hands, were long-fingered, immaculately clean, the nails trimmed to surgical precision. He wore a dark suit beneath his white coat, and his manner was warm without being effusive, professional without being cold. "Monsieur Poirot." The handshake was firm, brief, calibrated. "A pleasure. I've read about your work, of course. Fascinating application of method to disorder." "You flatter me, Dr. Mace, though I confess the disorder I address is somewhat different from yours." Mace smiled, a careful, photogenic smile. "Crime and illness have more in common than you might suppose. Both are disruptions of the natural order. Both require diagnosis before treatment, and both, regrettably, are sometimes fatal." He gestured for us to sit and proceeded to conduct a preliminary examination of Poirot's supposed complaint with genuine thoroughness. His questions were precise, his manner attentive. He listened, really listened, in a way that I suspected was rare among men of his eminence. Throughout the consultation, Poirot played the anxious patient beautifully, but his eyes were working. I knew the signs. He was cataloguing the room, the framed diplomas, the photographs on the wall, mace with various luminaries, the bookshelf, medical texts, but also biographies, philosophy, a worn volume of Marcus Aurelius. The desk surface, ordered, but not obsessively so. A human being lived here, not a machine. I would recommend a series of tests, Mace concluded. Nothing alarming. We'll rule out the obvious before considering any intervention. You are most reassuring, Doctor. Poirot paused, then added with seemingly casual interest, I understand you suffered a recent loss. A patient, Lady Catherine Frome. My condolences. The change was subtle. Mace did not flinch, did not stiffen, but something behind his eyes, a door perhaps, or a curtain, moved. Thank you, he said. It was a great shock. Lady Catherine was a wonderful woman. You knew her personally? She was a patient and a friend. Her husband, Sir Edward, sits on our board of governors. Mace's voice was measured. These things, complications during routine surgery, they are rare, but they happen. Every surgeon carries such losses. It is the price of the profession. A price paid by the patient, I observed. Mace looked at Poirot sharply, a flash of something that was gone before I could identify it. Yes, he said quietly, always by the patient. We departed the clinic into the December chill. Poirot walked in silence for half a block, his breath forming small clouds in the frozen air before speaking. A formidable man. He seemed entirely genuine. The grief, the professionalism, all genuine. That is what makes him formidable, Hastings. He is not performing. He is a man of genuine skill, genuine warmth, genuine authority. And if Nurse Sadler is correct, he is also a man who stood over a patient he knew by name, whose husband sits on his governing board and deliberately severed her hepatic artery. But why? What possible motive? That is the question. And it is the question we cannot answer until we understand the relationship between Dorian Mace and Lady Catherine Frome. Not the professional relationship, the personal one. He hailed a taxi. Come, Hastings. We visit the bereaved husband. Sir Edward Frome received us at his house in Eaton Square. The house was large, handsome, and utterly devoid of personality. The sort of residence that has been decorated by professionals and maintained by staff, and in which no one has ever stubbed a toe or left a teacup on the wrong table. The mourning was similarly professional. Black crepe on the door, drawn curtains, flowers arranged with funereal precision. Everything correct, everything appropriate, everything dead. Sir Edward himself was a compact, vigorous man of 60 with shrewd blue eyes and the brisk manner of one who runs a shipping empire the way other men run errands. He shook our hands without warmth and without hostility and offered seats with the efficiency of a chairman convening a meeting. Monsieur Poirot, I know your reputation. You'll forgive me if I'm blunt. I don't see why you're here. I'm here, Sir Edward, because I am concerned. About Catherine's death. It was an operating theatre complication. Mace explained it. Harrington, the anesthetist, confirmed it. These things happen. You accept this explanation without reservation? I accept the explanation of the finest surgeon in London and his medical team. Yes. Sir Edward's jaw tightened. What I do not accept is the implication, which I understand certain persons have been making, that Mace was in any way negligent. Certain persons? A nurse, Sadler, I think her name is. She approached me a day after Catherine's death with some wild story about a deliberate cut. I showed her the door. The woman is either deluded or malicious. Poirot's expression did not change. You have known Dr. Mace for some time. 12 years. He saved my life in 1924. Emergency appendectomy, peritonitis setting in. I'd have died within hours. Since then, he's been our family physician, our friend, and a valued member of the clinic's board. Your wife's relationship with Dr. Mace, it was similarly warm. Something shifted in Sir Edward's face. Not a crack exactly, more like the setting of cement. Catherine admired Dorian enormously. She supported his charitable work, his research fund. She was on the committee that raised £50,000 for the Welbeck's new surgical wing. They spent time together then, beyond the medical. In the context of charitable work, yes. Sir Edward's voice had acquired the flat, dangerous tone of a man who is being steered toward a cliff and knows it. If you're suggesting anything improper, Poirot, I will ask you to leave. I suggest nothing, Sir Edward. I merely gather facts, like stones. Later, when enough stones are gathered, they sometimes build a wall, and the wall tells us what it was constructed to hide. Sir Edward stood. The meeting was over. At the door, Poirot turned back. One more question, if you permit. Your wife's will, has it been read? The cement cracked, just fractionally, but I saw it. That, Sir Edward said, is none of your business. We descended the steps into Eaton Square. The afternoon was dying, the street lamps coming on with their usual futile defiance against the London dark. He knows something, I said. He knows a great deal, Hastings. He knows that his wife and Dorian Mace were more than charitable colleagues. He knows, or suspects, that the relationship was intimate, and he knows something about the will that he does not wish us to discover. You got all that from a 10-minute conversation. I got it from his hands. When I mentioned the personal relationship, his right hand closed. When I mentioned the will, both hands closed. Poirot shook his head. A man's words may lie. His hands never do. We met Nurse Sadler that evening at her request in a tea room on Marylebone High Street, a modest establishment of checked tablecloths and dense Victoria sponge, about as far from Harley Street's polished corridors as it was possible to be while remaining in the same postal district. Irene Sadler was not what I had expected. I had imagined a nervous woman, perhaps somewhat excitable, the sort who might read drama into routine. She was nothing of the kind. She was perhaps 40, small and neat, with the steady gaze and economical movements of a professional who has spent her life in environments where panic kills. Her uniform had been replaced by a plain brown coat and a hat that made no statement. She ordered tea, declined cake, and spoke as though giving evidence, which in effect she was. I understand you visited the clinic today, she said to Poirot. Dr. Mace mentioned it at the staff meeting this afternoon. He seemed amused. He said Hercule Poirot had come to see him about a stomach complaint. He was not suspicious? Dorian Mace is never suspicious, monsieur. He is certain of his skill, his position, his immunity. That is what makes him dangerous. Tell me about the operation. Tell me everything from the beginning. Nurse Sadler folded her hands on the tablecloth and began. Lady Catherine was admitted the evening before. Routine pre-operative preparation. Blood work, nil by mouth from midnight. The usual protocol. I attended her that evening. She was calm, cheerful even. She told me she was looking forward to recovering in time for Christmas. She paused. The calm faltered, just for a breath. The procedure began at 9. Present in the theatre were Dr. Mace, Dr. Harrington, the anesthetist, Dr. Edmund Bell, the junior surgeon, myself, and 2 junior nurses. Standard team. The anesthesia was administered without incident. Without incident. Harrington is competent. I've never had cause to doubt him. And the surgery itself? Mace opened the abdomen at 9:12. The initial stages were routine. Identification of the gallbladder, clamping of the cystic duct and artery, everything by the book. Mace was, she searched for the word, He was himself, precise, unhurried, in command. And then, at approximately 9:35, he began the dissection of the gallbladder from the liver bed. This is the stage that requires the greatest care because the hepatic artery and the common bile duct are in close proximity. In a small percentage of cases, anatomical variation makes the identification of these structures difficult. Was that the case with Lady Catherine? No. The anatomy was perfectly standard. I could see it clearly from my position. There was no ambiguity. And yet the artery was severed. Nurse Sadler's hands tightened on each other. At 9:38, Mace made a lateral incision. It was deeper than necessary, wider than necessary, and in a direction that was... She stopped. She breathed. "You may take your time, mademoiselle." In a direction that was inconsistent with the dissection he was performing. It was not a continuation of his previous cuts. It was a separate, distinct movement, and it opened the hepatic artery. You're certain it was the hepatic artery? I have assisted at over 300 abdominal procedures. I know what a severed hepatic artery looks like. The bleeding was immediate and catastrophic. What happened next? Mace called for suction. Clamps were applied. Harrington increased the fluid resuscitation. All of this was correct. Textbook emergency response. She paused again, and this time the pause was longer. But there was a delay between the cut and the response. Between the cut and his recognition of the complication. In every other emergency I've witnessed, Mace reacts instantaneously. His hands move before his voice does. It is instinct, the instinct of a man who has spent 30 years in theater. But this time, his hands were still. For perhaps 90 seconds, he stood with his instruments motionless and looked at the hemorrhage. Looked at it, as though observing a result, not a disaster, a result. Her voice hardened, and then he began the resuscitation. Too late. By the time the bleeding was controlled, Lady Catherine had lost too much blood. Cardiac arrest followed within minutes. Poirot was silent for a time. The tea room hummed around us. The clink of cups, the murmur of conversation, the small domestic machinery of English life. None of it touched us. "You mentioned his face," Poirot said at last. "The expression when the monitors sounded." "Relief. I am a nurse, monsieur. I've seen every expression that crosses a surgeon's face when a patient dies. Horror, grief, fury, blankness, shame. I have never seen relief until that moment." "You have told no one else?" "I told Sir Edward Frome. He dismissed me. I told the clinic's medical director, Sir Ambrose Whitfield. He listened politely and then telephoned Dorian Mace in my presence. The following day, I received a letter informing me that my contract would not be renewed. You are dismissed, effective end of the month." She lifted her chin. "I'm not a hysterical woman, Monsieur Poirot. I have not imagined this. I know what I saw. I believe you, mademoiselle." The words were simple. The effect on Nurse Sadler was not. Her composure held, but her eyes, for just an instant, shone. "There is one more thing," she said. "Something I did not mention in my first visit. I was not certain of its relevance. But you should know. Tell me." 3 months before the operation, I was working late at the clinic. I passed the door of Dr. Mace's consulting room. It was slightly ajar. I heard voices, Mace and a woman. The woman was Lady Catherine. You recognized her voice? Unmistakably. She was weeping, and she said, Nurse Sadler's jaw tightened. She said, "You cannot simply end it, Dorian. I will not be discarded. Edward will know everything." And Mace's response? He said, "Catherine, please, let us be civilized about this." And she said, "Civilized? You want to talk about civilized? Wait until I tell them what you did in Vienna." The tea room continued its cheerful business. Nobody looked at us. Nobody noticed that the temperature at our table had dropped by several degrees. "Vienna," Poirot said softly. She mentioned Vienna. "Yes." And then the door closed, and I heard nothing more. Poirot spent the following 2 days in a state I knew well, submerged. He made telephone calls. He sent telegrams. He received visitors I was not permitted to meet. He read medical journals with the concentration of a man studying for an examination in a subject that might save his life. He ate little, slept less, and twice I found him standing at the window at 3 a.m, staring at the London rooftops as though the chimneys might arrange themselves into an answer. On the 3rd day, he emerged. "Hastings, we travel to Vienna." "Vienna? In December?" "The coffee is superior. The pastry is civilized, and in a certain hospital archive, there exists a file that will tell us what Dorian Mace is hiding." We crossed the Channel by ferry and continued by rail, a journey that Poirot endured with his characteristic stoicism regarding foreign railways, which is to say, he complained continuously, but with such elegance that even the complaints were entertaining. Vienna in winter was magnificent and melancholy, a city of grey stone and golden domes, of coffee houses that smelled of chocolate and intellect, of wide boulevards where the ghosts of emperors still seemed to stroll. The Danube, despite the famous waltz, was the colour of old dishwater. Poirot's inquiries led us to the Allgemeines Krankenhaus, the General Hospital, where he had arranged, through the intervention of a friend at the Austrian Ministry of Health, to examine certain records from 1928. 1928, I said. 8 years ago. What happened in 1928? Dorian Mace spent 6 months in Vienna on a surgical fellowship. He studied under Professor Karl Drexler, one of the leading abdominal surgeons in Europe. It was considered a triumph, a mark of extraordinary distinction. And during those 6 months, 3 patients died on the operating table, all under Mace's hand, all during routine procedures. My blood went cold. The hospital archivist, a meticulous woman named Frau Huber, who treated filing cabinets as sacred objects, produced the relevant case files with reverential care. Poirot examined them in a small reading room that smelled of paper and pipe tobacco. The files told a story. 3 patients, a merchant's wife, aged 42, cholecystectomy, death from hemorrhage. A retired professor, aged 67, hernia repair, death from cardiac arrest. A young mother, aged 31, appendectomy, death from complications. 3 deaths in 6 months, I said. Is that unusual? For a surgeon of Mace's caliber, performing routine procedures in a hospital of this standard, it is extraordinary. It is in fact so unusual that Professor Drexler launched a private investigation. What did he find? He found nothing conclusive. The deaths were attributed to anesthetic complications and unforeseen anatomical variations. But he terminated Mace's fellowship 2 months early and wrote a letter to the Royal College of Surgeons in London. Poirot produced a translated copy. The letter is cautious, diplomatically worded, full of professional courtesies. But the message is clear. Drexler suspected that the deaths were not accidental. He suspected Mace was killing patients deliberately. He could not prove it. He had no witnesses willing to testify. The Austrian medical establishment, like its British counterpart, protects its own. But he ended the fellowship and he wrote this letter. And the Royal College? Filed it, took no action. Mace returned to London, resumed his career, and rose to the summit of his profession. Poirot's voice carried a rare bitterness. The letter, Hastings, was buried, as the patients were buried. I stared at the case files. 3 names, 3 ordinary people who had walked into a hospital trusting that the man holding the knife would save them. Why? I whispered. What possible reason could a man have for killing his own patients? Poirot closed the files. That, Hastings, is the question that has haunted me since Nurse Sadler first sat in my chair, and I believe the answer lies not in medicine, but in the human heart, the most dangerous organ of all. We returned to London on a Thursday. By Friday afternoon, Poirot had assembled what he called the architecture of the affair, a phrase that meant he had constructed a theory and required facts to furnish it. "Tell me about Lady Catherine Frome," he said. We were in his flat. The fire crackled. Outside, December rain streaked the windows like tears on an indifferent face. I had done my research. Born Catherine Millward, 1892, daughter of a Northamptonshire clergyman, educated at Cheltenham Ladies' College, married Sir Edward Frome in 1918. She was 26, he was 42. No children, active in charitable circles, hospital boards, orphanages, the usual. And her health? Unremarkable from what I can gather. The gallbladder trouble was recent. 6 months of intermittent pain, diagnosed by Mace himself. By Mace, he diagnosed the condition that led to the surgery that killed her. That's standard practice, surely. Your own doctor recommends the procedure. Standard, yes. Also convenient if one wished to create the circumstances for a death. I set down my notes. Poirot, you're suggesting that Mace invented or exaggerated the diagnosis to get Lady Catherine onto his operating table. I am suggesting it as a possibility. We cannot know without examining the medical records, which Mace controls, and the body, which is now beyond examination. The burial, tomorrow morning. I've confirmed it. St. Margaret's, Westminster. Poirot's expression was grim. Once the coffin goes into the ground, any physical evidence of what happened in that operating theatre is lost forever. Then we must stop the burial. With what authority, Hastings? We have the testimony of one nurse, dismissed from her post. We have circumstantial evidence from Vienna, 8 years old. We have a dead woman whose husband refuses to cooperate, and a medical establishment that has closed ranks around its most illustrious member. Inspector Japp. Japp cannot obtain an exhumation order on the strength of a nurse's suspicion. He requires probable cause. He requires evidence. The clock ticked. The fire shifted. And Poirot sat very still, doing the thing that Poirot does better than any man alive, thinking. "There is one avenue," he said at last. "The will." Lady Catherine's will? Sir Edward's reaction when I mentioned it was unmistakable. He was afraid. Poirot rose and moved to his desk. A woman of Lady Catherine's social position would have a solicitor. The will would have been drawn up formally, witnessed, filed. We cannot obtain it through the courts. Not yet. But there are other ways. He picked up the telephone and dialed a number. "Inspector Japp, s'il vous plaît." A pause. "Japp, mon ami, I require a favor. Not a large favor, a medium-sized one suitable for a Tuesday. I need to know the name of Lady Catherine Frome's solicitor, and I need it within the hour." Whatever Japp said in response, Poirot smiled. "You are a pearl among inspectors. I shall repay you with information that will make your career sparkle." The solicitor turned out to be a Mr. Gerald Osborne of Osborne, Chalk and Pemberton, Lincoln's Inn Fields. Poirot visited him the following morning, alone at his insistence, claiming that Osborne would speak more freely to a single interlocutor. He returned 2 hours later with the expression of a man who has found the missing piece of a jigsaw puzzle and does not like the picture it completes. "Hastings," he said, removing his coat with unusual slowness. "Lady Catherine Frome changed her will 5 months ago. 5 months, just before her illness was diagnosed." "Precisely. The previous will left everything to Sir Edward, with smaller bequests to various charities. The new will," he paused. "Yes? The new will leaves the bulk of her personal fortune, which was considerable, inherited from her own family, to the Welbeck Clinic's Surgical Research Fund, under the directorship of Dr. Dorian Mace." The room seemed to tilt. "How much?" "Approximately £200,000. Good God. There is more. Sir Edward was not informed of the change. He learned of it only after Catherine's death, when Osborne contacted him as a matter of routine. Osborne told me, in confidence and with considerable discomfort, that Sir Edward's reaction was volcanic. So Mace stands to gain £200,000 from Lady Catherine's death. Through his clinic, yes. It is not a personal bequest. It goes to the institution, but Mace controls the institution. As director of surgical research, the money would flow through his hands. That's motive. It is motive of the most compelling kind. But it is not the complete motive, Hastings. Remember what Nurse Sadler overheard. Lady Catherine was threatening to expose something about Vienna. She was threatening to destroy Mace's career. So he killed her to protect his reputation and secure £200,000. Two birds with one stone. Or rather, one cut of the knife. Poirot sat down heavily. But there is a deeper question, a question that troubles me more than the motive, more than the method, more than the money. What question? The patients in Vienna. Why did he kill them? There was no financial motive. They were ordinary people, not wealthy benefactors. There was no personal connection. Three strangers killed on the operating table for no apparent reason. Perhaps he made genuine mistakes. 3 times in 6 months? A surgeon of his caliber? Poirot shook his head. No, Hastings. Something else drove those killings. Something pathological. Something that Dorian Mace carries within him like a disease that presents no symptoms until it is too late. There are always people on the periphery of a crime who see more than they wish to and say less than they should. In the affair of Dorian Mace, that person was Dr. Harold Harrington. Harrington was the anesthetist who had been present at Lady Catherine's operation. A quiet, precise man of 45. He lived alone in a flat in Wimpole Street and was known among his colleagues as reliable, thorough, and unimaginative. The last quality being, in anesthesia, something of a virtue. Poirot arranged to meet him through a subterfuge I found distasteful but effective. He telephoned Harrington's secretary, claimed to be from the insurance company handling Lady Catherine's case, and requested a brief interview regarding the procedural details. Harrington, accustomed to such inquiries, agreed without hesitation. We met him in his consulting room, a spare, functional space that reflected its occupant. No photographs on the wall, no ornamental touches. A man who lived inside procedures and found comfort in protocols. The anesthesia was straightforward, Harrington said, consulting his notes. Sodium pentothal for induction, nitrous oxide and ether for maintenance. Standard protocol for abdominal surgery. Lady Catherine responded well. No complications. And during the procedure itself? Poirot asked. I monitor the patient's vital signs throughout. Heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory function, everything was normal until approximately 9:38, when there was a sudden drop in blood pressure consistent with major hemorrhage. What did you observe at that point? I increased the fluid resuscitation as per protocol. I informed Dr. Mace of the pressure drop, though he was already aware. He was already aware. He was at the operative site. He would have seen the bleeding before I registered the pressure change. Poirot leaned forward slightly. Dr. Harrington, I must ask you a direct question, and I ask you to answer with the honesty that your profession demands. Was there anything at all, about Dr. Mace's conduct during the procedure that struck you as unusual? Harrington's hands, which had been resting on his notes, went still. He did not speak for several seconds. There was a pause, he said finally. A pause. After the hemorrhage began, before Mace initiated the emergency response. It was, I didn't time it precisely, perhaps a minute, perhaps 90 seconds. And in your professional experience, is such a pause normal? No? The word came out like something extracted by force. No, it is not normal. In a major hemorrhage, the surgeon's response should be immediate. Clamps, suction, pressure. Every second counts. Did you comment on this at the time? Harrington removed his glasses and polished them, a gesture that reminded me painfully of another nervous man behind spectacles in another case. I said nothing. I was occupied with my own responsibilities, and Dr. Mace he is Dorian Mace. One does not question Dorian Mace. Even when a woman is dying? Harrington flinched. That is not. I did my job. I did everything within my power. The hemorrhage was beyond what could be managed. By the time the bleeding was controlled, by the time Mace decided to control it, Harrington stared at Poirot, and in his eyes, I saw it. The thing he had been carrying since the morning Lady Catherine died. Not guilt exactly, recognition. The slow, terrible dawning of a truth he had been refusing to face. You think he did it deliberately, Harrington said. Not a question. What do you think, Doctor? Harrington put his glasses back on. His hands were not steady. I think that I have worked with Dorian Mace for 7 years and never once seen him hesitate. Not once. He is the fastest, most decisive surgeon I have ever assisted. His hands do not pause. They do not waver. They do not... He stopped. They do not freeze for 90 seconds while a patient bleeds to death. No, Harrington whispered. They do not. Poirot rose. Dr. Harrington, I must tell you that I believe Lady Catherine Frome was murdered. I believe Dorian Mace killed her as he has killed before. And I believe that you, in your heart, know this to be true. Harrington said nothing. I ask you to consider, when the time comes, whether you are prepared to say publicly what you have said to me privately. A woman is dead. The man who killed her will kill again. Of this I am certain. The only question is whether we stop him now or wait for the next body. We left Harrington sitting alone in his consulting room, his notes spread before him like evidence at a trial that had not yet begun. That night, Poirot laid it out for me. Not the evidence. The evidence was still fragmentary, circumstantial, insufficient for any courtroom. What he laid out was the pattern, and the pattern was worse than the evidence. 4 deaths that we know of, he said. We were in his sitting room. The fire had burned low. The flat was in shadow, and Poirot's face, lit from below by the embers, had a quality that I can only describe as ancient, as though the weight of what he was carrying had aged him by decades. 3 in Vienna, 1 in London, all on the operating table, all during routine procedures, all attributed to unforeseeable complications. You think there are others. I am certain of it. A man does not begin killing in 1928 and then stop for 8 years before killing again. There will be others, in between, perhaps during the years he practiced at the London hospital, or during his private work at the Welbeck Clinic. But why? If there's no financial motive for the Vienna deaths, no personal connection, why does he do it? Poirot rose and moved to the bookshelf. He withdrew a volume, not a detective novel, not a legal text, but a work of psychology. He opened it to a marked page. There is a condition described in the medical literature, he said. Rare, poorly understood, and deeply disturbing. A compulsion, not sexual, not financial, but the compulsion to exercise absolute power over life and death. The French call it la jouissance du Dieu, the pleasure of God. You're saying Mace kills because it gives him pleasure. I am saying that for a certain type of mind, the operating theater is the ultimate arena of control. The patient is unconscious, helpless, entirely at the surgeon's mercy. The surgeon holds a knife. The surgeon alone decides, cut here and the patient lives, cut there and the patient dies. For most surgeons, this responsibility is a burden. For Dorian Mace, I believe it is an intoxication. I felt sick. Not from the brandy, from the image Poirot had constructed. A man standing over a sleeping body, knife in hand, making the choice. The godlike choice. But Lady Catherine is different, I said. She has a motive beyond the compulsion. Yes, she threatened him. She knew about Vienna. How, we do not yet know, but she knew. She was going to expose him, and she had changed her will, directing a fortune to his clinic, perhaps under his influence, perhaps as an act of devotion during their affair before it soured. Poirot paused. So he faces a choice. If Catherine speaks, he loses everything: his reputation, his career, his freedom. But if Catherine dies on his operating table, he gains £200,000 for his clinic, eliminates the threat to his secret, and satisfies the darkest part of his nature. All at once. All with a single cut of the knife. 3 motives converging in one act. Precisement. Money, self-preservation, and compulsion. It is the perfect murder, Hastings, committed in a room full of witnesses who are trained to trust the very man who is killing their patient. Then how do we prove it? Poirot sat down. The fire had gone out entirely. The room was cold. "We need the body," he said. "Without a post-mortem examination by an independent pathologist, we have no physical evidence. The operating theater records have been written by Mace's own team. The witnesses are his colleagues, his employees, his protégés. Nurse Sadler is alone, and she has been discredited. The burial is tomorrow morning." "I know." "Then we have, 15 hours? Poirot looked at me. In the darkness, his eyes were very bright. "We have less than that, Hastings, because Dorian Mace also knows the burial is tomorrow morning, and I believe he knows that Hercule Poirot is not suffering from a digestive complaint." What followed was, I believe, the most extraordinary night of my association with Hercule Poirot. Not because of violence, there was none. Not because of dramatic confrontation, that would come later. But because of what Poirot accomplished between the hours of 8 in the evening and 6 the following morning, through nothing more than the telephone, his grey cells, and a will that would have shamed a locomotive. He began with Inspector Japp. "Japp, I need an emergency order to delay the burial of Lady Catherine Frome." Japp's response, even through the telephone receiver, was audible across the room. It was not encouraging. "I understand the difficulties," Poirot said patiently. "I understand that Sir Edward Frome is a powerful man. I understand that the medical establishment has declared the death natural. But I tell you, Japp, and I have never told you an untruth in all our years of association, this woman was murdered, and the man who murdered her will walk free tomorrow unless you act." Whatever Japp said next changed Poirot's expression. He listened, nodded, and when he spoke again, his voice had the quality of a blade being drawn from a sheath. "Then I shall provide you with grounds. Give me until midnight." He hung up and immediately dialed again, and again, and again. Over the next 4 hours, Poirot made 17 telephone calls. He spoke to contacts in Vienna, Paris, and Edinburgh. He spoke to retired surgeons, hospital administrators, insurance investigators, and the editor of The Lancet. He spoke to a woman in Dorking who had lost her husband on Dorian Mace's table in 1931 and had never understood why. He spoke to a registrar at the London hospital who had noticed discrepancies in the mortality records during Mace's tenure. He spoke to Professor Drexler's widow in Salzburg, who confirmed that her late husband had gone to his grave believing that Mace was, in her words, in murder in Weissenkittel. A murderer in a white coat. By midnight, Poirot had assembled a dossier. It was not proof. He would be the first to say so. But it was a pattern so consistent, so damning, and so detailed that no reasonable magistrate could ignore it. 7 patients, spanning 8 years. 3 in Vienna, 1 at the London hospital, 1 at a private clinic in Edinburgh, 1 at the Welbeck. And Lady Catherine Frome. All routine procedures, all fatal hemorrhages or cardiac events, all attributed to unforeseeable complications, and all operated on by Dorian Mace. He telephoned Japp at 10 minutes past midnight. "You have your grounds, mon ami. I'm sending a dossier by motorcycle courier. 7 suspicious deaths. a pattern that no statistical analysis can explain by chance, and the testimony of Professor Karl Drexler, transmitted through his widow and his former assistant, that Dorian Mace was terminated from the Vienna Fellowship because of suspected patient killings. This time, Japp did not argue. At 3 in the morning, an emergency magistrate's order was obtained, not for exhumation, which required more formal proceedings, but for a delay of burial pending police review. At 4, Inspector Japp and 2 constables delivered the order to the undertaker handling Lady Catherine's arrangements. At 5, Poirot received confirmation that the burial had been postponed indefinitely. At 6, he made one final telephone call to Nurse Irene Sadler. "Mademoiselle, it is done. The burial is stopped. The investigation begins." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Then, very quietly, she said, "Thank God." Poirot hung up. He stood for a moment in the grey London dawn, his small figure silhouetted against the window. Then he turned to me, and I was startled to see that his eyes were wet. "Hastings," he said, "we have saved a dead woman from oblivion. That is something, but it is not enough. We must now save the living from the man who killed her." The post-mortem was conducted by Sir Bernard Spilsbury himself, the most eminent forensic pathologist in England, a man whose testimony had sent more murderers to the gallows than any other expert in living memory. Poirot had specifically requested him, knowing that Spilsbury's findings would be unimpeachable. The results arrived 3 days later. Spilsbury's report was characteristically precise. The incision that had severed the hepatic artery was, in his opinion, inconsistent with the normal trajectory of a cholecystectomy dissection. The angle of the cut suggested a deliberate lateral movement, not a continuation of the surgical approach. Furthermore, the surrounding tissue showed no evidence of the anatomical variation that might have caused a surgeon to misjudge the location of the artery. In plain language, the cut was intentional. Additionally, Spilsbury found traces of a mild sedative in Lady Catherine's blood, not the anesthetic agents administered by Harrington, but a separate compound administered orally. This sedative would have been undetectable in the post-operative confusion and would have deepened the anesthesia to a level that made cardiac arrest more likely following blood loss. "He drugged her before the operation," I said, reading the report. "The sedative weakened her system, and then the cut finished the job." "Belt and braces," Poirot murmured. "The mark of a man who has done this before and refined his method." Inspector Japp obtained an arrest warrant that afternoon. Dorian Mace was taken into custody at the Welbeck Clinic at 4:30, in the middle of a consultation with a cabinet minister's wife. He went quietly, with, by all accounts, the same composed, dignified demeanor he brought to everything. But Poirot was not satisfied with the arrest. He wanted the confession. "A jury may acquit on forensic evidence alone," he told Japp. "Spilsbury's report is powerful, but the defense will bring their own experts. They will argue anatomical variation, procedural error, reasonable doubt. Mace is charming, respected, beloved. 12 good men and true will not want to believe that their hero is a monster." "Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest that you allow me to speak with him. Alone." Japp hesitated. Then he agreed. The interview room at Scotland Yard was a bare, functional space. A table, 2 chairs, a window too high to see through. Dorian Mace sat with his hands folded on the table, his posture erect, his expression one of calm bewilderment. Poirot entered alone. I watched through the observation window, a privilege Japp granted me reluctantly. "Dr. Mace," Poirot sat. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I didn't have much choice, did I?" The famous smile appeared. Charming, rueful, slightly self-deprecating. "I must say, Poirot, this is the most extraordinary misunderstanding. I'm confident it will be resolved." "I hope so, Doctor. I hope so sincerely." Poirot folded his own hands. mirroring Mace's posture, a technique I had seen him use before. But first, I must tell you what I know. Not what I suspect, what I know. Please. Poirot spoke without notes. He described the Vienna deaths. He named the patients. He quoted Drexler's letter. He described the London hospital case, the Edinburgh case. He described Nurse Sadler's testimony. He described Harrington's admission of the 90-second pause. He described Spilsbury's findings. He described the sedative. Throughout it all, Mace's expression did not change. He listened with the attentive stillness of a man being presented with an interesting clinical case. When Poirot finished, Mace was quiet for a time. Then he said, "That is a remarkable construction, Monsieur Poirot. But a construction is not proof. Spilsbury's report is proof. Spilsbury's report is an opinion. Another pathologist might disagree. Surgical anatomy is variable. Instruments slip. Arteries behave unpredictably. 7 times, over 8 years, always routine procedures, always under your hand." Mace's smile thinned. Bad luck pursues some of us. Bad luck does not administer sedatives before surgery. For the first time, something moved behind Mace's eyes. A flicker, quick, controlled, of the animal behind the mask. "I did not administer any sedative. The compound was found in her blood. It was not part of the anesthetic protocol. Someone gave it to her between the evening before and the morning of the procedure. You visited her room that evening. Nurse Sadler logged your visit at 8:45 p.m. Mace said nothing. Lady Catherine was threatening you, Poirot continued. She knew about Vienna. She was going to expose you. The affair between you had ended, at your instigation, and she was not willing to accept it. She had changed her will in your favor. £200,000 for your clinic, but the money was not the primary motive. The primary motive was silence. You are constructing a narrative, Poirot. It is compelling fiction. It is fact, and it is not the complete fact. Poirot leaned forward. Because the money and the self-preservation, these explain Lady Catherine's death. They do not explain Vienna. They do not explain the London hospital or Edinburgh. They do not explain the other deaths for which there was no motive of money or self-defense. Mace was very still. Those deaths, Doctor, those were not calculated. Those were something else entirely. Something that you carry within you. Something that emerges in the operating theater when a human being lies before you, unconscious, entirely at your mercy. Stop. You have described your work as restoring order to disorder. You have compared surgery to detection, the diagnosis before the treatment. But for you, the treatment is not always healing. Sometimes it is destruction, and the destruction, Poirot's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The destruction gives you something that healing does not. I said stop. It gives you power. Absolute, godlike power. The power to decide who lives and who dies, and in the moment of that decision, in the 90 seconds when a patient bleeds and you stand with your hands still and your face quiet, in that moment, you feel something that terrifies you as much as it completes you. The silence that followed was the longest I have ever endured. It stretched across the room like a wire, thin and bright and unbearable. And then Dorian Mace did something I did not expect. He closed his eyes. And when he opened them, the mask was gone. Not removed, dissolved. As though the face behind it had finally grown too large to be contained. You cannot understand, he said. His voice was different now. Stripped, raw. The voice of a man speaking from a place he has never shown another human being. No one can understand. The theater is. It is the only place I have ever been alive. Truly alive. The body open before me. The organs, the vessels, the architecture of a life. And I hold it. I hold all of it. In my hands. He looked down at his hands. Those famous, celebrated, insured hands. Sometimes I heal. Most of the time I heal. I'm good at it. I am the best. But sometimes, his voice caught. Sometimes there is a moment, a clear, perfect moment, and the choice appears, as though God himself has placed it before me, left or right, life or death. And you choose death. I choose to know what it feels like, to hold that power, just once, just that once. And then, he looked up at Poirot, and his eyes were those of a man staring into a mirror he has avoided all his life. And then, it is not once, it is never once. Dorian Mace was tried at the Old Bailey the following spring. The prosecution, armed with Spilsbury's testimony, Nurse Sadler's evidence, Harrington's reluctant but damning statement, and Mace's own confession, secured a conviction. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. The verdict was guilty. Mace did not hang. The court accepted the psychiatric testimony that described his condition, a compulsion so deeply embedded in his psychology that some argued it constituted a form of insanity. He was committed to Broadmoor, the institution for the criminally insane, where he would remain for the rest of his natural life. I visited Poirot the evening after the verdict. He was in his flat, arranging his books. The Balzac had at last been satisfactorily shelved, and he seemed, to my eye, diminished. Not physically, but in some harder-to-define way, as though the case had extracted something from him that could not easily be replenished. "You are not celebrating," I said. "There is nothing to celebrate, Hastings. A brilliant man has destroyed himself. 7 people are dead, perhaps more that we never discovered. A profession that should inspire trust has been made to inspire fear." He set down the Montaigne. "And the system that should have stopped him, the Royal College, the hospital administrators, the colleagues who saw the pattern and said nothing, that system remains intact, unchanged, waiting for the next Dorian Mace. Nurse Sadler has been reinstated at the Welbeck Clinic. Sir Ambrose Whitfield resigned. A small victory. It's more than that. She was the one person who spoke up." Poirot nodded. She was. One woman, alone against the most powerful man in her profession. She was dismissed, discredited, and ignored, and she persisted. He looked at me. "That, Hastings, is more courageous than anything I have done in this case. I followed evidence. She followed her conscience. It is not the same thing. You stopped him. Too late for Lady Catherine, too late for the others." He moved to the window, that familiar post where he had stood on the night this case began, and looked out at London. The city sprawled beneath him, vast and indifferent, its million windows glowing with the lives of people who would never know how close one of their most trusted healers had come to being their executioner. There is a phrase in the Hippocratic Oath, Hastings, primum non nocere. First, do no harm. I know it. Dorian Mace took that oath. He swore it before God and his colleagues, and every time he entered that operating theatre, he carried it with him, and every time he made the choice, left or right, life or death, he broke it. Not in ignorance, not in error, but in full, conscious, ecstatic knowledge of what he was doing. He turned from the window. That is the surgeon's secret, Hastings. Not the affair, not the money, not the Vienna file. Those are merely the circumstances. The secret is simpler and more terrible than any of them. What is it? That a man can heal with the same hand that kills. That skill and evil are not opposites. They are sometimes the same gift, turned to different purposes, and that the patient on the table, the one who trusts you with their life, will never know which purpose you have chosen until it is too late. He smoothed his mustache. The gesture was slow, tired, final. Come, Hastings. Enough of surgeons and their secrets. I find I wish for something simple tonight, a tisane, a biscuit, the evening paper and its comforting trivialities. He paused. and perhaps a moment of silence for the ones we could not save. We sat together in the quiet flat, the fire burning low, the clock ticking its steady, patient rhythm. Outside, London carried on, oblivious, eternal, magnificent in its refusal to stop for tragedy. And somewhere in Broadmoor, behind walls that no skill could breach, Dorian Mace sat in a room without instruments, without patience, without the power that had defined and destroyed him. A surgeon with nothing to cut, a god with nothing to rule, the most dangerous hands in England folded in his lap. Still, at last,